Welcome back, Stationeers. This is episode 9 of the Vulcan Gas Depot series. It's day 51, and in the last episode we got quite a bit of production done, or construction done rather. We went through and set up a system to manufacture water, as well as getting our greenhouse pressurized and growing. So now I'd like to go over and actually just start putting some of those systems into operation. We have a power shortage at the moment that should be resolved fairly soon here. We're going to have to manually kick these solar panels, it looks like. Okay, some of these, yeah, we're going to have to disassemble these real quickly here too. We'll repair these. Okay, why is the tracking not happening? Okay, so that is turned on, it's just not getting power. Okay, let's turn off this cooling system. I think this cooling system is just eating too much, actually just leave this one on. It's only taking 50 watts. Let's make sure we've got, yeah, we've got almost 500 liters, wow. That is a bunch. Lovely. Okay, so now we have some power. Yeah, and now these are tracking. That's looking good. 99%, 100% health. And we'll repair these real quickly too. They don't do a whole lot, but it's better than nothing. There we are. And now if we go check our batteries down in the basement, yeah, it's looking a little better. Alright. Okay, so now we are in the new greenhouse here. Let's have a look at the atmosphere real quick. Oxygen is at 12%. I think that's going to be...
Oxygen critical.
Yeah, still oxygen critical. Things are looking better, though. Okay, let's start putting in more of these. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Hunger caution.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 should be to there. And actually, while this light is off, let's do a bit of rewiring here. Okay, so we'll move it over 1, 2, 3. Oops, but we need it further over. Okay, there we are. So that is that one, 1, 2, 3. And from that row, it goes 1, 2, 3. So that should cover all of these now. And now we will need the second grow light. 1, 2, 3, the fourth one. So it's going to be right about there. Actually, let's spin that around. Okay, there we are. Now let's try putting in just some test plants, I guess. Oh, but these aren't going to have water. And we don't have the water pipes, which are down here. And of course, we're one short. Always a pipe short. Let's just steal this for now. Thriving, and looks like it's growing. So yeah, so we can fill this entire thing in then. So we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 28 minus the 1 here is 27 more of those. How's everything looking out here? This is purified. 35,000 moles of volatiles ready for sale. much is that at? 3 megapascals at 30 degrees. I do need to take a quick look and see what the liquefaction pressure is there. So at 30 degrees, yeah, we're getting close to the liquid point. We're going to have to add a little bit more volume on that as a temporary measure. There we go. That should drop that pressure substantially. Yeah, so it's going to be about 1.5 and should be growing more slowly. Automation is on, and temperature in that tank is good. Lovely. And our batteries are not healthy, but doing okay. Okay. Oh, and these are ready for harvest too. That is just perfect timing. And since these don't have water, let's just remove these. So now all of these should have water. They do. And we can begin harvesting. It needs water. And that one is thriving, excuse me. Okay, so that is all planted. Still got a few more trays I got to put in, but for the time being, we're looking good on that. Let's just drop all this hay over here. And we're going to have to get an oven set up over here. I guess we'll run downstairs. We need a frame to set that on. Okay, one of the first things I want to do, actually, before I get too far on that, is turn this system on. And let's put in our soybeans. Oh, doing that wrong. I think they go in here. Yeah. There we are. And we'll take out our oil. And we will put in our wheat and make flour. Okay, so that's wheat, or oil and flour. That will let us make bread once we have this thing set up. And let's go put that frame in. And if we install the oven, I guess here is as good a spot as any. I'm sure I'll regret that later, but who knows. We'll wire that up. And how do we set this up? that's the oven constructed. And we'll make sure that's all wired in. And why does that not have power? That's why. Okay. And our oxygen is 19%, I think.
Oxygen critical.
Still oxygen critical. So we're going to need some more time, but we are getting close on that. Okay, that is looking good. Let's get the oil and the flour, tomatoes in there. And that should let us make bread, wherever that is. There we are. First loaf of bread. I guess let's go over to the other greenhouse and have a bite to eat and a drink. Take a little break and let our Stationeer recover a little bit. And this is very nice. Finally to 125% water instead of 75%. That's going to mean a lot less trips back here, running back and forth, constantly drinking water. I guess while we're in here, let's do a little bit of harvesting. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, looks like my hygiene is good. We're going to come back across to the other side here to the new greenhouse. We'll finish planting the rest of these ferns in the newly installed hydroponics trays. And we have just enough. That worked out just perfectly. Okay. How's our oxygen looking here? 23%. Kind of low pressure.
Oxygen low.
Oxygen low. So we're getting closer to being able to breathe in here, but not quite still. But very, very close. We have a few more of these. Let's see. 1, 2, 3... 1, 2, 3, yeah. So 1, 2, 3. So this is as big as 2 grow lights can support. I could get 1, 2, 5. Yeah, it's really not quite enough to get a third field going in here. I'm going to have to figure out what I want to do on this. In the meantime, let's get a couple chutes from down in the basement here. Okay, so let's put a chute outlet. No, we want just a 90 degree. So fertilizer will come out there, and we will put an inlet right here. Okay, so now if we take some of this decayed grass, we want 6 of these. And if we throw those into that inlet there, those will go down into the basement. We can then turn this on and bring a little bit of air into this system. Oh, it'd be nice to be able to see that pipe network. Let's put a segment just up like this, I guess. And Now we can inspect that network. So that has... Let's get a couple megapascals in there. Oop. Yeah, that's a little bit low pressure. There we are, 65 kPa in here. And 2.5 megapascals in there. So there's 120 moles of oxygen, and that's what we really care about. I need at least a little bit here. Oh, we're going to need some automation chips. Okay, we're back from the other base. We have a chip housing as well as a IC-10 chip. So let's go ahead and install the housing, I guess right here for now. We can always move it if it's in a bad spot, but I think this will be a fine spot for it. So that has power. And then we're going to want the computer. Okay, so we're going to alias the composters. I think I need to use aliases instead of the batch reads and writes because we need to access the slots, and I don't know if that can be done on batch reads. I think I could do it with the stack, but I'm going to just do it this way because this is the easiest. We should never have more than 6 of these things. So we want to put in our main loop. Okay, and then we want to load slot into R0 from compost 1, the slot index, so I need to look that up. Okay, index 0. Yeah, so I guess we're just going to call it slot 0, slot index 0. And then the logic type on that is logic slots. Here we go. Quantity. So we'll read the number of things in slot 0. If the, let's just save to the database setting R0. Confirm, export. Okay, advanced composter. And that's the other advanced composter. And so now that contains 6 items in the first slot. Okay. Looks like they all went into that back composter, so that's fine. Okay, let's pull up the computer again. So set R0 if R0 is greater than 3, greater than or equal to. And then let's save to compost 1. The on switch is R0. Confirm and export. And if we look at this now, yep, that one is turned on. And then we want to do the same. Let's see, if we press the button, what happens? Not enough water, it says. Yep, and that's what we thought. So we're going to have to make a quick bit of water. To do that, we'll turn on this system here. That is going to pull oxygen out of here and put pressure into this pipe. There's just nitrogen and carbon dioxide in there, so we'll run that. That won't pull any hydrogen out, but it will pull out nitrogen and carbon dioxide. And then we'll run this one, which will put the nitrogen in there and the carbon dioxide in there. Yeah, and it has just a negligible amount of nitrogen and oxygen. That's from contamination from opening this valve upstairs, but that's fine. And this tank now has a little over 100 moles in it. Beautiful. So let's turn these off. And we can just turn these off as well. And that's empty. Okay. So now we have oxygen. We just need to bring over hydrogen from the other side. Let's steal these pipes. Oh, we're going to need a combustor as well. Or the mixer, excuse me, and the combustor. So we'll put the combustor... Well, let's grab the mixing valve in a little bit here. Figure out first where that is. Okay, so that valve, or that pump, we're going to put in there like that. We'll wire that up real quick. Okay. There we go. And this now has hydrogen in it. Let's pump a little bit of that over. Don't have a ton of it there, but 500 moles will get us a good start here. Okay, and then we are going to want to run a pipe out underneath the floor, I guess. Now let's run out this way. Oh, we've got to wire this in real quick too. I forgot. I noticed this in the last, while I was editing the last episode. And let's just make sure this tank has nothing in it. That should be the hydrogen tank. There we are. So that will hook up like that. There we go. Oh, and then that has to be hooked on the outside. That's fine though. We'll worry about wiring in this mixing valve first. So the gas mixer output is going to be to right there. Let's put that in there. Okay. And we'll need a little bit more pipe for that. We'll put these 4 panels back. And we'll wire up this mixer. And now that has input 1 is, should be 30%, 33%. And we'll run that about 27. So we'll run a little bit hydrogen rich. If we run just a moment there, we should end up slightly hydrogen rich. Why is that not working? Why does that not have... Oh, it doesn't have hydrogen in it because I never hooked it up. Okay. Okay, so... hydrogen line we want to connect... Where's a straight 10 going to go to? Too far. Not entirely sure why I can't come down. Oh, because there's a wire there, I'll bet. Yeah, blocked by cable. Okay. We'll see maybe eventually about redoing that, but that's fine for now. So now if we go into the basement there... Yeah, we'll just let that run to pump out this basement as thoroughly as we can. Let's see, if we turn on the mixer temporarily, this should have gas in it now. And it's about a 2-to-1 ratio. That's almost perfect. That's lovely. Let's go just a little bit less oxygen, because we do want to run hydrogen rich. So we'll run a few percent hydrogen rich. And we'll wire this up. And let's just make this, just for cleanliness, let's make this a straight 3. Lovely. So now we can get some pressure built up in there. We're going to want at least 20 moles of finished product, so we'll stop that about there. Looks good. We've still got a little bit of gas in this basement, which is fine. Let's see how this is looking. And that's 22 degrees. Let's open this valve and let's cool those tanks down. Yeah, so that's going to equalize in temperature at about 25, which is fine. Let's come back up here, and then let's actually replace this with a one-way valve, just so we don't further contaminate that room, or that tank system. And let's let a little bit more pressure into this room. Hey, we can breathe in here. Ha ha ha. That is lovely. Yeah, there is a lot of oxygen in this room stored up. And let's go manufacture some water. And I built this wrong, as is tradition, so we're going to have to take that apart. And we'll reinstall it as a filtration unit. And I installed it backwards. There we go. That's an air conditioner. There's a filtration unit installed correctly. Wow, that was far more work than it needed to be. There we go. Okay, so we'll put the filter units into it, and let's start investigating here. So this has fuel in it at 102 Celsius. If we run this, that produces a mix of things. Very small amount of unburned oxygen in there, but negligible quantity. So that's looking quite nice. Okay, so this input pipe is a vacuum, and that has some pressure in it, so that's trying to drain out, but this pipe pressure is too high. Okay, so it's not letting it. 1700 degrees, and we have how much water in there? A couple of moles. Why did that only make a couple moles of water? That should have produced a lot more than that. Oh, because there's still a fair bit in there. Okay. So this needs to be vented. Let's just run this for a minute and see what's in the output line here. Yeah, just CO2 pollutants and then a little bit of unburnt oxygen and volatiles, so that's fine. We'll just vent those, so we'll get a vent on that. No, could have just taken that one there. Honestly, let's do that. This is no longer used. Okay, and let's install passive vent there. So now if we run this, this should slowly be filling up. That's looking nice, and that is 260 degrees and cooling rapidly, and that's holding temperature. I do want to optimize this a little bit. I can make this a little better, but for now we're just going to dump the heat straight into the night gas tank. So that is evacuating. And we're just going to turn that off. There's a little bit left in there, but that's fine. That pipe is a vacuum, so we can turn that off. And what have we got? We made very little water. It cooled down a little bit, and it's about 110 degrees. Okay, so that appears to be working. This 110 degree... We'll probably want to get another heat exchanger on there. Let's see. We'll figure out. I think by controlling the pressure, we won't need a second one, so that's fine. And that's barely cooling because there's nothing in there. So that made a very small amount of water. We're going to have to... That's concerning. Okay, so we'll pump some of that down into the basement tanks. And we'll let the pressure come back up a little bit. That's good enough for now. So eventually we will automate this system. For now I'm just running it manually just to make sure it is all functioning as it's supposed to. So now we can turn this on and that should start pushing through a lot of oxygen. But that mixing valve sure isn't very fast. Yeah, we'll want to automate this so we can control the pressure in this cooling loop here. Yeah, we are gonna need... So let's grab one more heat exchanger. Okay, let's put in another heat exchanger here. So this is going to be a liquid to gas heat exchanger. And we want it like this. And we'll just offset it by 1, I guess. I don't know. It's a little weird looking, but it's kind of a strange pile of heat exchangers down here. And we'll plumb that in. And then we'll plumb in the gas side as well. So on this side right now we have how much temperature? That's 400 degrees, and this is 141. And now if we look at this, this should cool off rapidly. Yeah, perfect. And that is warming up a bit. Oh, because this is empty, so that'll fill tonight, and then that'll be a much more stable temperature. So there's 58 moles of water in there. That should be enough to run the composters now. So yeah, that's kind of warm, but it's low pressure because it's empty. As soon as we get to nightfall, this automation should kick in and push gas into that tank. Yeah, it was trying to exhaust. Do we missing? We're missing a floor panel there too. There's floors missing everywhere. And this is cooling off 185 and 160. Yeah, so there's about 50 moles of water in there, 38 in liquid form. So let's keep vacuuming out this basement here. It's slowly warming up. So now if we come in here, we should be able to close this. And this thing has not enough water. What's in this pipe? Oh, there's no water in that pipe, that's why. So we're going to have to run the hot water pipe all the way over there. Where was that? This is cold water, that's hot water. Okay, and then we'll continue vacuuming this basement out. And we'll plumb this together. Let's connect a straight 3 there. There we are. Okay, now this should finally have water, and it does. It has 20 moles, which is enough. Let's put the floor back. Okay, and now if we come in here, we should be able to close this, and then turn this on. Oh, we need to turn off that automation. Okay, let's turn off the automation. That's messing with that. That's why. So we'll turn on the automation. This has ground all of them, and there's 6 left to process, so let's press that. That is going to release nitrogen into this room. It's relatively cool. And we'll just turn this off. That should stabilize the pressure in this room, hopefully. Oh, we have to seal this up. Yeah, we're going to have to weld these. It's leaking out through the floor here. That's a problem, but we can solve that. Okay, so that will stop leaking out now. So now the pressure should be stable in here. Yeah, stable as a vacuum chute. And that means... Okay, yep, so we pumped that all into the other thing. There is some volatiles in here, so let's just pump all of this into this pressure line here. Everything from this room. And then if we turn on this filter here, that should pull volatiles into there. And we can bring our nitrogen into there. Beautiful. Now, we've pumped some volatiles upstairs, but that's okay. So I think this is a good time for a break. So far we tested the water manufacturer, and that appears to be working just fine. Let's just have another quick look at that. Why does that not have anything in it? Oh, because this already ran. We can turn that off. We can turn that off. And we have about 130 moles. So that's a few liters of water once that all condenses. And it's nice and cool, 168 degrees. We can also test this system, I guess. There's no cold water in here, but we'll pump just a little bit through to test that. And that's cooling off rapidly. It should condense, and that will heat this pipe, but this should stay quite cold. And it does warm a little bit. Let's try putting that speed down a bit. Okay, so that's 82 degrees and falling. Yeah, and even at 0.1 liters it does. That's quite a bit of heat loading. But that's not looking bad at all. So yeah, we've made a good solid liter of water, and we should be water positive at this point. This is struggling a bit with the heat load, so we might have to beef up this system a little bit. We do have this cooling booster system that can help as well. $394 liters, and the pressures there look good. Yeah, so that's pulling 2 kilojoules, 2.5 kilojoules. And if I come over, I guess I probably can't see the heat exchanger. Yeah, I can't see the stats on that. If I go underneath, maybe. Yeah, there I can. Yeah, so that's pushing a kilojoule into that pipe, and 2 kilojoules are being pulled out at the other end. let's just double check this water again. Yeah, 50 degrees and dropping. So that's a liter of good, cool water. Okay, we're back after a break. I've done some planning on the next moves here. I'd like to do a bit of automation over in the new greenhouse on the atmospherics handling unit, so let's get started on that. Okay, so this unit down here, we're going to start by naming a few things. So next, we want to install a volume pump onto here. This is going to go back out to the rest of the room. Okay, we're going to need some more pipes. We're back. Let's put a few things on these shelves here. Just store some extras down here. And we'll finish up this pipe work. Okay, and let's wire up this pump. And we'll set that to its maximum volume. And let's just... that looks fine to dump that to the room. Let's just see how this works. Yeah, so it looks like it's mostly able to keep up with this filter. Okay, and then we'll need to name that. We're going to call that the pre-volatiles dump pump. Alright, so we're going to start working on the code here. Oh, we're going to need, before we do that, we're going to need a gas sensor upstairs. I forgot about that. Let's just do that real quick. Okay, we'll put a sensor kit where? Here, I guess, somewhere. I'd just like to try and get it away from any vents and things. We'll put it over here in the corner where it gets a somewhat independent reading. Okay, so, and then we will call that the greenhouse gas sensor. Confirm that, and we want to
Hunger caution.
reinstall this pump. And, oh, actually we don't need a one-way valve on there. I was going to put a one-way valve in, but a pump actually acts as a one-way valve anyway, so that's fine. We don't need that. And we'll set that to the max 10 liters, and we will call that greenhouse CO2 pump. And again, like always, we'll save those names. Okay, greenhouse CO2 pump, greenhouse gas sensor. Oh, looks like we have another solar storm going on. I just want to have a quick look and see how the batteries are doing. Yeah, those batteries are going to fully charge. Let's do a bit more processing while we're able to. Since we have basically unlimited electricity right now, let's turn all this on, and let's turn on these filtration units. Boy, it is really hard to see with that sun there. 383. And this is 26. That is all looking good. Okay. So we want to start by reading the pressure in the room upstairs. So we're going to read into R0 from a gas sensor. And we want pressure. And we'll take the minimum in case there's more than one of those. So set R0 if R0 is greater than 90. And we'll read from the same sensor the ratio of oxygen. And we'll read that into R1. And we'll set R1 if R1 is greater than 30.3. So 30%. So if we have more than 30% oxygen in the room and greater than 90 kilopascals up there, let's run the intake vent. And confirm that. Okay, so let's see what the room is looking like right now. So there's plenty of oxygen and pressure up in that room. So if we write this code, it should kick that vent on. So export that code and put it back in there. Oh, what have we got?
Hydration critical.
Line 19, argument count. Missed a space. There we go. Okay, and that pressure, or that vent is on and pulling in oxygen from the room. Oxygen and just whatever else is in there. And the O2 is good, so it's going to continue dropping until 90. And, oh, by the way, I didn't put an overpressure protection on this pipe segment here because these vents have that built in automatically at 50 megapascals, so we're just going to leave that. And it looks like that turned off. There we are. So the room pressure is a little bit below 90, at least over on this corner. We only have one gas sensor in there, so the room can have different pressures around it. So yeah, that looks good. So that pulled in a bunch of oxygen and carbon dioxide mainly to be processed. Now because this is high pressure, any pollutants or liquid nitrous oxide rather, will liquefy and come into this tank. It looks like we didn't get any in this batch, but that's why we don't have filters for those, because this tank will just accumulate those. Eventually we'll just manually hook up like a portables tank or something and just dump that manually. Or maybe run a vent outside or something. I don't know. We'll figure that out later, but that'll take basically forever to fill. It may never fill. So let's do a little bit more editing now. So the next thing we want to do is turn on the oxygen filter if it needs to run. So we're going to start by loading into R0. Okay, so we're going to read the input pressure on the O2 filter, and we'll set R0 if R0 is greater than, I have 30,000 on my notes, so that means this isn't going to run right off the bat, but that's fine. And then from the filter, we also want to read into R1 the pressure at the output, and we want to set if that's less than 15,000. And then we will do the same thing for output 2, which is the waste output, and check that that is also less than 15,000. And then we want to take the ratio of oxygen on the input side into R3. So if we have greater than 1% oxygen in there, and in R4 we want the ratio of volatiles. And we'll set R4 if R4 is greater than 0.001. So if there's greater than 0.1% volatiles in the input stream, or greater than 1% oxygen, and the pressure conditions are met, we want to run this. Okay, so we AND 1, 2, and 3 together, and then R3 itself is ORed from R3 and R4. So if we have either an excess of volatiles or oxygen in this input stream, then we will run the filter. Instead of load batch name, we'll save batch to the filter, and the mode setting is, actually let's just say the on setting is R0. Okay, so that should be good. And if we look, yeah, this is not running, and that is what we expect. Problem is now, okay, yeah, so that should run until the pressure in the output pipe gets too high, so that'll be safe. So let's just start by coming up here manually. Let's see. This is just controlling the lights. I'm just going to leave that one on lights, so Let's take the O2 input pump. Let's put some code on that as well. So let's read the pressure into R0 in the greenhouse room, and we'll set if that's less than 100 kPa. We should probably include a temperature check on that gas. Let's just put a pipe analyzer on that real quick. Do we have... Oh, we don't need a pipe analyzer because we have this tank. So we're going to need to name these tanks too. Okay, CO2, nitrogen, volatiles, and oxygen. And let's just make sure that's what they actually contain. Oxygen, volatiles, nitrogen, and CO2, which has just negligible amounts of other stuff in it, but that's fine. And we're starting to die from thirst, so we're going to have to run and grab a drink here in a minute. Okay, so load into R1. Okay, small insulated tank. And the name is the CO2 tank. And we want the temperature and the maximum, because we want to make sure it's less than a certain maximum. So set less than in R1 if R1 is less than, let's see, 25 degrees is going to be 298.15. Need to AND those two together, and on the CO2 pump, we need to save that. Okay. Confirm. We'll export the code and put it back in. And now that pump should actually be running. We should be able to see that on an increase in pressure on this pipe. I guess if we go upstairs we can tell for sure. It's telling it to turn that off. Why? Probably because it's too high a temperature in that tank. Which actually means it's a good thing we put that temperature check on there. Yep, 35 degrees. It is dropping, looks like 35.4, 35.5, so it's basically holding temperature. Okay, so let's go turn off the filtration units out there. So that's 36 degrees. Let's turn off these things. Is this... Why is... Oh, it's still 226 outside, so it's not running that vent just yet. Okay. And now this should start cooling down fairly quickly, 35.9. Now once that temperature drops, the greenhouse should repressurize. Okay. So next we would like to look at... So basically what's going to happen is when we get more than 30% oxygen in the room, we will pump gas down into this storage tank right here. That will fill up, and this will eventually kick on. And that is being controlled. Good. So when this kicks on, it's going to put gas into this segment of the pipe. If we have volatiles that need to be filtered out, we will run this filter and send those into the tank, and then we'll also run this to send them out through and separate out the nitrogen and whatever. If we don't have volatiles in that stream, though, there's no need to run it through this filter or this nitrogen filter. And so in that case, we're going to turn on this sort of dump pump that bypasses these filters and just sends it back up to the room. So we'll pump it in, take out some of the oxygen, and then send the remaining carbon dioxide and nitrogen, if it's clean, straight back up into the room. And that's the idea on that. So we're going to add in that code next. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the oxygen filter, the ratio of volatiles on the output side. So we're going to set that to be R0 if R0 is less than 0.001. So if we're less than 0.1% volatiles, we can just kick them back into the room. We don't need to perfectly clean the room. So into R1, we will read the pressure in this output pipe, and we'll set that if that is greater than, let's say, 15,000. Okay, so if there's high pressure in the pipe, that's R1. If there is volatiles in the pressure pipe, that is R0. So we will and into R2 if, actually let's do R10. If we have, let's see, how do we do this? Okay, and then let's invert R0 into R2. So set equal to 0 just flips R0. If it's 0, it makes it a 1. If it's 1, it makes it a 0, and it stores that into R2. So R2 is the opposite of whether we have low volatiles. So if we have high volatiles, R2 will be set. So if we have low volatiles and pressure in the pipe, then we will run the pump. And if we have into R11 high volatiles in the pipe and pressure in the pipe, then we will run the filtration unit instead. So now we'll save those, save batch name to the pump. And if we run the volatiles filter, we also want to run the nitrogen filter. Okay, so we check that the output stream from the oxygen filter has low hydrogen in it, low volatiles, and lots of pressure. If both of those are true, we run the pump. If it has pressure but high volatiles, we instead run the filters. And that should do it. So let's re-export that code. No errors. And now all three of these are off. So I think what I'm going to do is manually run, because this doesn't have any pressure in it. So what I'm going to do is turn this automation off for a little bit here. Okay, and then we're going to manually run the oxygen filter. So this would run on its own, it's just this tank never got up to a high enough pressure. And so this pipe here, when this hits 15 megapascals, this should, is that going to get to, that's going to take a really long time to get to 15. So because this has high volatiles in it, it should actually run. Let's just decrease those pressures a little bit so we can test this code. Let's turn this on, and that should stop. Yep, it stopped the oxygen filter because the pressure... Why did it stop it? Yeah, because the pressure in this tank is too low, and that's expected. So let's just change this code so that instead of 15,000, we run at 5,000. Confirm. Export, put the chip back in, and let's just check some stuff here. So we should have greater than 5,000 in here, which we do. So as soon as we turn that on, the hydrogen filter should run. And why isn't it? Wonder if I have to manually... Oh, this is the output 2 line, because this is the waste line. I was checking the output line over here, so that's a bug there. Let's change that real quickly. So ratio on the output 2 line and pressure on the output 2 line. Okay, yeah, so those are correct. Come back over here. So this is over 5, so if we turn this on... that immediately starts running, and that starts running until this drops below 5. And then those turn off. Beautiful. Okay. And if I try to run this, yep, it is cycling that off, so that is under control. There we are. So that should be automated. I think that's really all we need. Eventually, I mean, we should have some overpressure protection on these tanks and stuff, but I don't think these are likely to get to where we need to worry about that. That's just about down to temperature. And what's that pressure looking like? Our temperature is down to 26. So when this hits 25 degrees, the pump upstairs should click on. It'd be nice to be able to read that pipe from there. Okay, so this tank is down to temperature, which should mean that vent in the greenhouse is running. Let's go check on that. Pressure in here is... yes, it is running. And it's 29 degrees in the room, which means the gas that's coming in is actually cooling the room down. I don't think we're going to need any additional cooling. We're bringing in 24 degree gas. That means the oxygen leaving might be a little bit warm, but that's going to be fine. What's the oxygen looking like in here? Fine to breathe. And it sounds like this ran a little bit as well. Because when that's... yeah, because we have 40% oxygen. And so every time this gets above 90 kilopascals in here, we're pulling out some of the carbon dioxide and oxygen and replacing it with pure carbon dioxide. So that means the oxygen ratio should drop until it stabilizes at 30%. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, it's 39% over here, it's 38% over here, because we're bringing in fresh carbon dioxide, and that's just slowly moving through the room. Alright, let's go downstairs, and let's put on a few more of these pipe meters. That's why I made 5 of them. That is looking quite nice. So now we can just at a glance see if any of these are getting too high a pressure. Okay, I think this room is looking pretty good. So we've got all of this automated. This still is not automated. I haven't set that up yet, but I'm going to worry about that a little later. This isn't automated either, and that actually is something we could look into. Yeah, we've got a lot of oxygen in there, 1,000 moles. Let's just try running this for a little bit. Okay, so let's name that gas mixer. Call that fuel gas mixer. Oh, and that's going to need a pipe analyzer. Okay, so one other thing I thought about, we do actually want to check when we run this pump, this dump pump, we want to make sure we don't overpressurize the room upstairs. So we're going to add in an additional check for that as well. So read the oxygen filter, then we want to read the greenhouse gas sensor pressure into R3 we're not using. And let's set R3 if it's less than 110. So we want to prioritize the intake CO2 vent will only pressurize up to, what is it, 90 kilopascals or something. That's a check at the top. So we'll drop down to 90 on the outflow. We'll push up to 100 on the greenhouse gas CO2 pump, intake pump. But if we're returning used gas, we will actually allow it to go up to 110 because we want to prioritize putting used gas back into the room before we take fresh stuff. So let's also and into R10 R10 and R3. Okay, so let's put this pipe analyzer on. And it looks like you can put those on long segments. I hope that reads correctly. We'll turn that on. And let's look at that. We'll have to name that as well. Fuel gas mixer and fuel pipe analyzer. Load into R0 from the pipe analyzer the pressure. And if that is less than, say, 5,000, we'll run to 5 megapascals in there. And then let's turn that on. Okay, and what is that pressure in there? 1.7. Why is that not... Oh. Yeah, I'm turning that thing on and off. That's not right. We want the fuel gas mixer is what we're turning on and off. And back in the housing, and there, now that's on. Let's just see if this gets up to 5 and then shuts off. It's looking like it's going to. Alright, 5 megapascals and it shuts off. Beautiful. Okay, and our oxygen is down to 30% in here, so now when we repressurize, this will not run unless the plants produce more oxygen. So we are looking good on that. Okay, I guess let's just install this drinking fountain into here. So this pipe network has how much liquid in it? 19 liters. That has 1 liter at 21 degrees. Okay, so we have 19.3 liters. If we drink from the fountain, we have 17.8, so that took 1.5 liters to get us about 150% hydration. So yeah, it's about a liter per 100% then. And what's left in here? Okay, so there's a few liters left in there as well, in reserve. And this is holding at 30% oxygen. We're not bringing in new oxygen because it's too warm, or new carbon dioxide. So that's good. So yeah, I think we've fully automated this greenhouse at this point. Yeah, it got above 30% and clicked on for a brief time. So that's looking good. And this is up to 24 megapascals in this pipe. So eventually, once this gets over 30, that system in the basement will kick on and start doing some filtration. So I think we're going to stop here for this episode. We have food and water. We can start using this as our living and breathing base, eating and drinking area here. We'll be fairly soon, we'll get some food brought in here. I don't want to make any more until I've eaten that loaf of bread. And in the next episode, we'll start looking at more trading and actually selling some of this gas that we've produced, some of the oxygen and carbon dioxide, and we'll put it up for sale. So until next time, I'll see you later.